This is 9.3 of Algebra. So we've talked about quadratic functions. Now we're going to talk about quadratic equations, which the only thing different now is that it's equal to 0. Okay? And when it's written in this form, this is the standard form of a quadratic equation. Okay? And before, when we wrote this, we had it equal to y, or maybe we had it equal to f of x. Right? So if y is equal to 0, right, if we're putting in 0 in place of y, then that's what we're looking for as a solution. Okay? That's what x is. We're looking for what x is when y is 0. So if you look at this picture, this is where y is 0. Okay? This is where y is 1. This is where y is 2. We're looking, where does it cross the x-axis? So you could see it crosses here and it crosses here. So this specific graph has two solutions. Okay? There's three different options of the number of solutions you can get. You can get 2 solutions, you can get 1 solution, or you can get no solutions. Okay, so graphing that, here's 2 solutions. Here's 1 solution, right? Here's your solutions. And here's what no solutions would look like. Right, it doesn't cross at all. We're calling it solutions. The other thing that you can call it is roots or zeros. Those are interchangeable. Okay, so we're going to find some solutions by graphing. Okay, so let's do A here. I'm going to make a table. I'm going to do -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So -2 squared, that's 4. -1 squared, that's 1. Hopefully you're getting used to these. 0 squared, that's 0. 1 squared, that's 1. 2 squared, that's 4. And then I need to subtract 16 from it. 4 minus 16, that's -12. 1 minus 16, that's -15. 0 minus 16, that's -16. And then a couple repeats here. 1 minus 16, that's -15. 4 minus 16, -12. And then I'm going to graph this. Let's go down by 4s, since I don't have a ton of room here. So at -2, we're at, oh, whoops, those are all negative, right? We're at -12. -1, we're at -15. So that's right there. And at 0, we're at -16. At 1, we're at -15. And at 2, we're at -12. Okay, but that doesn't actually cross, right? If I just graph this right now, if I draw in my graph, it doesn't cross. I know where it's going to cross and how many times it's going to cross, right? If you extend this, oops, right, it's going to cross twice. But we want to know what the solutions are, what the actual solutions are, so I need numbers. So I need to continue my table in my graph. If I plug in 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 16 is -7. So at 3, I'm going to put a dot at -7. If I connect that one in, still don't cross yet. If I put in 4 squared is 16. 16 minus 16, that's 0. There we go. Now we know where it crosses. And it would also cross over here. 3 would be at -7. At -4, we'd be at 0. Okay, so there's 2 solutions. X equals 4 and x equals -4. Okay, and let's try doing C. Here's the deal. When you're graphing, it needs to be equal to 0. Okay, so we didn't have to change anything in A because it was already equal to 0. But in C, it's not equal to 0. So I need to make this 0. In order to make that 0, I need to add 25 to both sides. Just so happens that this cancels it off, right? And I get x squared equals, and this cancels off. So I get x squared equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to make a table, x and x squared. It's going to be a pretty short one, right? Not a lot of work to do. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. -2 squared is 4. -1 squared is 1. 0 squared is 0. 1 squared is 1. And 2 squared is 4. Now if I graph this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 0, 1, 4, you can see that it crosses the x-axis. Well, rather it doesn't cross, but it hits the x-axis once, right here. And that's where x equals 0. If it helps, look at your tables, okay? On the left one, we got 0 here at the bottom, right? And what gave it to us was 4. Okay, we can do that same thing over here. We got 0 here, and what gave us that was 0, right? If you look at the column, x equals 0 there. So, one solution, and it's x equals 0. Okay, so we can solve graphing, but there's, in my opinion, an easier way. We can solve using square roots. Okay, so when we're solving using square roots, we need to get the variable alone. You need to get x squared alone, m squared alone, d squared alone, that sort of thing. And then get just the plain variable alone, x, m, d, that sort of thing. So, in this case, I don't want it equal to 0. I'm trying to get m squared alone, so I need to get rid of this -36. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides. So I get m squared equals 36. The opposite of squaring, or what undoes squaring, is the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. When you write in a square root, just like we did, you're going to get two answers. You're going to get a positive answer, you're going to get a negative answer. So in this case, we get that m is equal to plus or minus 6. Why isn't it just plus 6? Well, if we have m squared equals 36, and I plug in -6, -6 times -6 is a positive 36. And that comes out true, right? If there's already a square root in an equation that you're working with, then you don't make it plus or minus, only if you draw it in. So let's try B. I need to get this x squared alone, so I need to get rid of the 3 and I need to get rid of the 15. I need to start with the 15. So 3x squared is equal to -15. Divide by 3. X squared is equal to -5. This would be when we do the square root, but is there any time when we square a number, so we square -2 or we squared 2, and we get a negative answer? Well, a positive times a positive is positive, and a negative times a negative is positive. So you can't ever take the square root of a negative number. This will never happen. There's no number out there in the real numbers that that number squared is equal to a negative number. So, in this case, we have no solution. It doesn't cross the x-axis at all. Then let's solve our last one here. I'm trying to get d squared alone. So -16. I get 4d squared equals 0. Divided by 4, but that's not going to do anything really, right? Still just 0. Take the square root. Since we can't have a positive and a -0, our answer is just 0. So we have one solution, and it's d equals 0. Okay, so now we're going to do a story problem, okay? We have our volume equation, V equals LWH, so length times width times height, right? And we're looking at this aquarium sort of deal. We're just going to use different numbers than what they used. So we're told in there that it has a length L that is twice the width, W. So that means in place of L, I'm going to put 2W. Okay, our problem down here says that there's a height of 4 feet and a volume of 500 feet cubed. So I'm going to plug in 500 and the 4. Now I need to clean up this stuff on the right. So 500 is going to stay over here. 2 times 4 is 8. And w times w is w squared. Now I'm trying to get w squared alone. So I'm going to divide by 8. So w squared is equal to 500 divided by 8 is 62.5. To get rid of this square, remember the opposite of that is taking the square root. So I square root both sides. And I get that w is equal to plus or minus 7.9. But here's the deal. This is talking about our width of this tank, right? Can you have a negative width? No, right? Just in the same way when we did story problems with things dropping, it didn't make sense to have a negative time. It doesn't make sense to have a negative width, so our answer is just going to be positive 7.9 feet. So yes, technically there are 2 answers, but since we're doing a real-world story problem, we can only use the positive answer, because that's what makes sense. And there's your homework.